Imagine being at a convention, Eric. Can you see it?
Probably like twice a month, every month for an entire year.
Okay, but like in your mind right now, imagine what that might be like.
Yeah.
And imagine that there's someone standing before you and they have something to share.
Ooh.
But the line's way too long.
Yeah.
And you can only, spend a certain amount of time before it begins to feel disrespectful to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that feel like?
It's kind of I'm a little frustrated because I know what it's like to be on the other side of that. So yeah,
right.
I want to give everybody more time, but I can't.
Exactly.
Yes.
But now imagine that we have that same opportunity to hear what somebody has to say, but there's no line.
Oh, I really actually hate lines, just in general.
Yeah, you just want to get in and out.
Yeah.
So we have that opportunity in this episode. Today, we're dealing with more listeners' letters, enjoying, embracing, reading, responding to the lovely things that people have taken the time to go to our silly little website and enter in. And by the way, that's Andromeda Productions, and you should check it out, at least if you want to be a part of the conversation. We're going to be doing these letters more frequently, but I'm excited that these are definitely more recent within the last few months than our last batch. So we've been catching up, and I'm excited to jump into it.
Yeah. So what do you say?
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Hey, this is Dan Green.
And Eric Stewart.
And this is episode 34 of The Heart of the Cards, and we're doing some more listeners' letters.
I like that.
All right. So, as usual, we will not give the whole name. We will take some freedom or license to edit parts out if we feel that we need to get to the heart of something. So please don't be offended if we don't read your letter in total. But I promise you we won't put words in your mouth either. We won't say that you're saying something that you're not.
No.
So it works both ways, really.
As I like to say, we won't AI you.
That's a good way of putting it. It's so timely.
Right? Thank you.
And
for an old man.
And also, if you haven't heard your letter or haven't heard it yet, like I said, we're going to be doing more of these things. And we don't want to just read a letter and say thanks and move on, right? We want to give time to give some reaction to what people have shared with us.
Yeah.
So that's why we are taking a little bit more time with these. All right. So with those ground rules set, are you ready to jump in?
Yeah. Why don't you start off? Since I think this first letter sort of is more.
Yeah, let's do us both.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
You want to read it?
Yeah. This first one is from Jennifer. And it's a suggestion, questions, and a courage message. Oh, I wonder what that is. Hi, I'm from Indonesia, and I want to keep your careers going. Maybe you can try something new like dubbing another Japanese character from the upcoming Ultraman series.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, and Jennifer also acknowledges that 4 kids took their whack at that a while ago.
Yep.
And here are the questions.
Yes.
4 of them. Question 1, what's your favorite Pokemon? Eric?
Squirtle.
I would have to say Mewtwo. It's really hard. Mewtwo or Entei. I'm going to go with Mewtwo, though.
Okay.
Somewhat biased.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Question 2. If you're Yugi and Pharaoh Atem, okay, which Pokemon would be your ace partner? Oh.
Okay. Crossover. I like it.
Let's see. I'll say Entei. I get to use Entei again.
Oh, that'd be a cool combo.
Sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's majestic.
Yeah.
What is your message for Ash and Pikachu as the last episode of Pokemon anime?
Oh. So,
and
yeah.
Let's do this for you since.
Sure. My message, so I think Brock would say, well, I know it's sad to come to the end of a journey, though I still think we're still on it because, I don't know, Jenny and Joy are up ahead somewhere. And also, I've cooked my rice balls for you. And, let's just eat. That's what Brock would say. And then I think James would say, so now can we finally capture Pikachu? Can we? Please? I think that's what would happen. Right there. Those would be the two messages.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful way to send Ash and Pikachu off.
Yeah.
And Jennifer also requested that I say something as Atem. So, Atem would say something like, "No matter where your journey ends, a new one begins. But the most important one is the journey within yourself and each other."
You just blew Ash's mind.
Boom! Take that, Morpheus from the Matrix.
Right?
I love Fishburne, by the way. That's not a slam.
Yep.
So next question is, will you play Pokemon trading card games? And since that game is pretty much like Duel Monsters.
Well, being a big gamer, that's not my style of game. So I will not be playing that. Though that's probably a lot of fun to play. No, I will not be playing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I also do other things with my gaming time. And although I can promise that if I were to play the Pokemon trading card game, I would play it just as well as Duel Monsters, which is horribly. Yeah, I'm terrible at them. I just act like I know what I'm doing.
That's right.
That's also true in my life.
Oh, well, actors.
Yeah, except for the show, I have good writers, and for my life, I get a better writer.
Maybe we can hire them for that part, too.
Maybe!
Anyway.
And the message is, everyone receives blessings and happiness, but sometimes you lose what you've cherished most. But everyone who's enjoyed your career will give you the most important thing that you can treasure, and you can do it for eternity. Aw.
Yeah.
Thank you. And never give up. That was so sweet, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you for all of that.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate those kind words and those that courageous or that support, that courageous support. And we appreciate you being a part of this.
So the next one we have is from Jenna, who writes, wanting to thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Dear Dan and Eric, it's been weeks since I found your channel and wanting to write to you, but I've really struggled to find the words and the confidence to send this in. You don't have to, we're just two guys who like to chat.
Yeah, seriously. We're all friends here.
That's right. My Saturday mornings growing up in the UK consisted of watching Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! On Sky One. They were my favorite shows and how I made friends at school. As I had figures from Pokemon and the trading cards of Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, yeah, I know. I've heard that a lot, actually. It's what's really nice is that is a sort of the catalyst to how people get together, and I think that's really cool. Sorry, I keep having to comment on the kindness of your letter there, Jenna.
Hey, we said we were going to process these letters.
Yes.
That's good.
Very quickly, my relationship with Yu-Gi-Oh! Drastically changed when I was barely 10, when I lost some family members. I'm sorry to hear that.
God.
It became a way of coping with their deaths. I fortunately had an item from each of them. And I know it sounds silly, but those items become my Millennium Puzzle, and a piece of them would always be with me until I could process their passing. My family wasn't really ones to talk about it, but I was watching a spirit look after a teenager until they were ready to stand on their own, which I did when I grew up a little bit more emotionally. When I went to college, it was through Yu-Gi-Oh! And a not-so-recognized show called Huntic. I made my...
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that one?
I directed much of that, and I was a character in that.
Yeah,
you could have. Very fun show.
Yeah, you could have cast me in something on that. But anyway, I made my two best friends and met my partner, so now Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more about friendship. Some of my favorite memories are the duels we have or moments from watching the movies together. Well, that's cool. In my late high school and college years, watching more of what I could of your works along with a few other voice actors inspired me to learn how to use my own voice and do quite a bit of performing. But my own, that's kind of cool. But my own mental health held me back from going further. My favorite Kaiba line is, Yugi, stop saving the world and get a hobby. Yeah, that is a good one. I can't take credit for writing that, but I can definitely take credit for the delivery. My favorite Yugi and Atem is the scene where they are talking about Heart of the Underdog card and Atem switches on Yugi, leaving him to explain to Joey, that's real mature, Pharaoh. I want to thank you for your involvement in those franchises, as they wouldn't have been what they were without you and the rest of the cast and its creator, Kazuki Takahashi. May he rest in peace. And also thank you for the notes you both wrote back in 2017 when you visited the UK, Then I was unable to come and see you as I was in very late stages of my pregnancy, and one of my best friends who went to the con asked, and you each kindly did a message for me and my partner, and that little poster is mine and my partner's most prized possession. And when my self-confidence is at its lowest, as I did suffer from body dysmorphia disorder caused by my years of bullying, I look at it and it makes me feel better. And even though you hadn't met us, you still took the time for us. My partner agrees Yugi cheats, but then his favorite character is Kaiba, as they have a few things in common. He has a Blue Eyes deck and is a jerk to almost everyone except his little brother. Okay. I personally have both a Dark Magician and a Harpy Lady deck, as my favorite characters are Atem, Yugi, and My Valentine. And we use our love for the Yu-Gi-Oh game instead of arguing. We duel it out. So yes, sadly, sometimes Blue Eyes wins. Hey, I mean, come on, right?
What else do you expect?
I sadly missed you both in the summer just gone, but I hope the next time you're in the UK, I get to meet you guys in person. Again, thank you for your past work and the Heart of the Cards, which I look forward to each week. You guys are amazing. I've tried to give back by being a patron. Jenna. Well, thank you, Jenna. Thank you for that kind letter. Yes, you have to come and meet us in person. We do need to come back to the UK and do something again.
We love going there.
Yeah. Wow. So playing the card game instead of arguing, I think that's some great sort of marriage counseling, right? You know, like let's duel it out. I like it.
So good. But then I think maybe they should develop a deck specific to couples who are married.
Yes.
And it's like, I play the share the chores equally card, or whatever the issue is,
right?
Like emotionally, whatever the problem.
I play do the laundry in attack mode.
Right. I play more emotional intimacy.
I love it.
In affection mode. I think we're on to something.
Yeah, very funny, very funny.
And thank you, Jenna, very much for also being a patron. We do have a Patreon, and it's under Andromeda Productions. So you go to Patreon and you search Andromeda Productions, and you can contribute whatever you feel comfortable with. I think the $1 is the minimum. That's the lowest we could set it. So, and thank you to all of our patrons who we are not in the habit of shouting out to. We should make that a part of our podcast.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jenna. This next one is from Thomas, and it's about Comic-Con experience. I hope we get a good review.
Yeah, really.
Okay. Good morning, Dan and Eric. First off, I hope you are both doing well. Well, thank you, Thomas. Right back at you.
Yes.
This is Thomas. I had the privilege of meeting you both for the first time, along with the lovely Veronica Taylor. No argument there. She's one of our favorite people. At London Comic-Con earlier this year, I was dressed in my Ash cosplay. Well done. I remember after my amazing meeting with Veronica being in line for my picture with you two. Here I was, a 28-year-old armed forces male, shaking before I got to see you two. When it was my turn, I was walking up timidly, and I remember Eric looked over with a smile and said, "Hey, it's Ash. How was your journey?" That immediately made me smile, the biggest grin I've ever had, while I looked down nervously and replied it was good, thank you. Then I looked over to Dan and asked if we could take the picture with the 2 signature cards. When I pulled out my Blue Eyes and Dark Magician, Dan gasped and said Ash with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and we all had a small laugh. I can't put into words how that made a simple picture be one of the highlights of my day. Later that day, when I went to get my stuff signed by Dan and Eric, I went to Dan first. As the line kept shrinking, I was getting closer to meeting someone who is not just a very talented actor, well, thank you very much, that I look up to and admire. I deeply thank you for that as well, that I deeply admire and respect, but a legend in my eyes. Well, I always feel like I never really deserve that, but I appreciate that you feel that way. I remember when I got up there, so many things I wanted to ask him and tell him how even to this day him and Eric are a big part of my life. I botched it and rambled on. But nonetheless, Dan was beyond kind and signed my stuff and still gave me a pleasant experience that has to this day been a bright spot in my interesting life. When I got to Eric, I'm disappointed to say I really felt I let him down. Even though in the picture he was nothing but supportive and kind, when I went up, I froze. I don't know if it was because it was at the end of the day, but even though Eric signed my things, I got intimidated and didn't get to really ask him any questions or tell him how much I admire him. How his performances in Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Kirby, etc. to this day still bring joy and help with my lack of creativity. how even though I know he likes acting, he's still pursued and achieved his dream of being in music. He's inspired me to pursue my dream in acting, even while I'm supporting myself in the Air Force, though I have confidence issues and I only have a couple of years of high school theater experience. So I hope I can get the chance to meet you both again, because for me, it isn't just about meeting your heroes, your childhood icons, or even people who inspire you. One of the best things about meeting you all was, even though it was only a short time, I got to meet some extremely nice, down-to-earth people that have been there and are still a big part of my life. Also, I may be late to the party on this, but in an earlier episode, I thought I heard Dan say he was teaching. That's true. I was doing some teaching, but I'm not doing that right now. Lastly, there's much more I'd like to say someday, so please, if this reaches you all, and if I'm still allowed to write in, please let me know. I do not want to be selfish or take away from any other people and how you've helped in their lives. Much love and nothing but the best for Dan, Eric, Veronica, and all of your amazing friends, colleagues, and families. Sincerely, newly promoted Senior Airman Thomas, with a smiley face.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well, good for you,
yeah.
Thomas, and thank you for that letter. And I do recall meeting him. Now that he retold the story,
Yes.
I remember it because, yes, with, the Yu-Gi-Oh cards was memorable.
Yep.
And some people have a similar experience of feeling like they freeze or they're not meeting the moment. Some people, you can tell they've really wanted to, have a moment with you, and then they just don't know what to say. And just so you guys understand, that's fine. We expect that. We've seen that before. So it doesn't disappoint us. It doesn't anger us or irritate us. And we just want to be there for you. And, it's great that we have this way for people to reach out to us if they experience something like Thomas did. So
yeah, and Thomas, honestly, you didn't disappoint me. Just the fact that you were there to see me, to interact with me, and I appreciate even just the fact that you enjoyed my performances as a voice actor, and that you also see that music is very important to me, and that's part of my journey, and that you recognize that. So I appreciate you connecting with me on multiple levels like that. So the next time we see each other, we can chat a little bit more. Or if you don't feel like you're comfortable doing that, that's okay too. It's totally okay. But just remember that what we're doing for a living just has this other side of it, which makes it seem like, I can't talk to them or I can't approach them. But honestly, we are really just two guys who have the benefit of doing a job that is entertaining and is fun, and we get to play these great characters. But we're just people, and you're just a person, and you're doing something. And I've said this before to people that are in the armed forces. I couldn't do what I do if you didn't do what you did, right?
Right, absolutely.
So we're there to thank each other. So thank you for what you do, and I appreciate the fact that you enjoy what I do.
Well said. Speaking of saying things well, how about you take this next one?
Sure. Okay, this next one is from Jaden, and the subject is short stories about different productions at 4 kids. Okay, I like that. There's an irony there that the subject matter is very long. I mean, we're talking. Sorry, I amused myself. The message. Dear Dan and Eric, I love the work you both did on various 4 Kids adaptations that don't seem to get talked about often. It's fun to go back and watch the creative choices that were done on them. I wish you could talk about experiences on all of them, or at least the ones that are still currently big franchises, like Ultraman, Kirby, Sonic, Shaman King, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Ultimate Muscle. Keep up the hard work. Jay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah. So you talking about the experiences, I mean, those are all completely different experiences working on all of those shows. But we do, I mean, I have definitely discussed, coming up with the voice of Meta Knight in Kirby, why I made that choice. Working a little bit, I know you worked on Ultraman more than I did. I think I played just incidental stuff on there, but, and Shaman King, which just came back and we were brought back to play those characters again, which was fun. and of course Ultimate Muscle, but all very different experiences. I mean, if you see us,
and we also we spread those, we pepper that stuff in throughout our other conversations. So I think what Jaden is asking for here is that we actually have episodes that focus on those parts, right, of our lives.
Yeah,
and I think it's also something that we've tried not to do with this podcast, at least so far. Yes, we've had our colleagues on, and the only reason that you would the listeners that we presume we have would be because they're fans of that stuff that we've dubbed. But we chose to make the heart of the cards about something more than what you'd expect us to say at a convention.
Yes.
Right. So, but that doesn't mean we can't have an episode talking about those sorts of things. But you're right, Eric. It would be, each of those is such a different show, and even though it's the same kind of work, depending on who you're working with, it's a very different animal.
Yeah.
So,
and if you see us
it's a good idea.
Yeah, true. And also, if they see us at a convention and we're doing the Q&A, you can ask about some of these things. I mean, and what's nice is that you and I have crossover in other shows. I mean, we have worked on all of these properties together.
It's because my ego is so big; it just flooded into the booth.
Well, you said the quiet part out loud. That not me.
Thank you for that suggestion, Jaden. Next, we have a letter from Matthew, and the message is for the podcast. My message for the podcast, he says. Dear Dan and Eric, my name is Matt, and I'm from New York State. I've been following both of your work since I was a kid, back when I watched shows like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! In fact, Pokemon was one of my gateway anime titles right when the franchise launched in North America back in 1998.
Oh, yes, I remember that. We discovered the wheel and fire.
I have also been regularly listening to your podcast since day one. Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And have been greatly enjoying all of your stories and words of wisdom. Dan, I had the absolute luck of getting to meet you at the Bonds Beyond Time premiere in New York, thanks to the people at 4Kids inviting select fans. It was truly a magical moment being able to meet somebody who has meant so much to my childhood. I hope eventually to get to meet you, Eric, as well. Would be great if both of you got to come back to your old hometown for a convention. We've been loving the idea of doing something here.
Could you imagine the two of us being from
country,
that area and doing a convention in the New York area? I mean, go figure.
What? The question I would like to ask both of you has to do with coming up with character voices. You both talked about this a little on an episode of the podcast, but what are some vocal inspirations that you have pulled from for your characters before? Have you ever based a voice off of a celebrity, family member, friend, teacher, coworker, etc.? When you have decided on a voice, what factors do you use to determine that it's a good fit for the character? I would love to hear you go into detail on any specific characters that you have voiced. Thanks again for all that you have done, and I look forward to more episodes of the podcast, Crossing the Gods, and other future endeavors.
Oh, cool letter.
Hey,
yeah.
Thanks, Matthew. Which is true. Even though we're slow on delivering, we got other things that we're really excited to share. Eric, do you want to take the heart of this question?
I'll take the first part. I mean, I'll take the first answer,
great.
and then you can also pipe in because I think that's important to get to the different perspectives on it. I've talked about this on earlier podcasts in terms of my bag of tricks. I in terms of coming up with a voice, especially if it's like, hey, we don't know what we're looking for. It's a young guy and it's this and that. I start with the same sort of like, okay, what's the register? Is it upper register, lower register, things like that. And then I add the things to it. Is there a dialect or, some sort of speech thing going on? But in terms of the things that I have done that maybe I'm known for, Brock was definitely my Casey Kasem ripoff because my introduction to anime with Battle of the Planets with Mark from G-Force being voiced by Casey Kasem. That was a voice I could do as a kid, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. Same thing about I would sing along to artists that I could sound like. So, when I started to do voice work, it was like, well, which celebrities can I kind of sound like? I'm not a a master of impersonations. That's not what I do. But I take pieces of hybrids of characters or actors, and I put them into it. With James from Team Rocket, it was Frasier, Niles, and James were all, to me, the Crane brothers. I thought of that sort of pompous blue blood approach. So using those as references, but never like sound-alikes. But that's really when it's character stuff. Kaiba is me with just the added sarcasm on top of my natural sarcasm. So I'm not really, I would say, trying to find this specific voice. What I start with is I want to get the acting side of it. I want to get the character's quote unquote voice. What is this person? Is he funny? Is he mean? Is he what is the vibe? And that sometimes dictates where the voice goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And for myself, like what Eric just mentioned, you think about what are the physical, basic aspects of the voice in terms of how high or low it is. Eric said register. I use the term pitch, and it's the same idea. And as I was getting more into teaching voiceover technique, I developed a more specific way of discussing these kinds of things and breaking down, I call them the 7 distinctive aspects of the voice. But again, that was something that I developed later on, not exactly the time frame that I was recording this stuff. And you're also getting input from the directors and the producers, in terms of what they're looking for. So that helps. And with Yami Yugi, like Eric just mentioned, it wasn't a direct imitation, but Patrick Stewart had a lovely way of being righteous and moral and aggressive at the same time. And he also has, what we Americans perceive as a more elevated way of speaking because he's using received pronunciation British. And so I thought that, and I'm not doing British for Yami Yugi, but there is a refinement to the way he speaks. Also, again, we both ripped off the Frasier show because Hudson Orstachio is Frasier on an ego trip,
Yeah.
And you actually, Eric, validated me in a way that I had never anticipated before because I don't do voices. Not that I'm incapable of doing them. I just don't, do the work of coming up with an impression of this person or that person. And but so the suggestion was Sean Connery.
Yeah.
And all I knew was the guy who was doing that funny version on Jeopardy on SNL way back.
Yes.
When he would make those, he would always misinterpret what was read to have some sexual connotation, something really inappropriate.
Yes,
and he would diss Alec Trebek in the skit every time. So, but then you were like, no, this is sounding good. And then I realized, oh, wait, I actually can do Sean Connery.
You do it very well. You do it very, very well.
That.
Yes.
I think what I was surprised to discover is that our voices are of a similar timbre. Right?
Yeah.
Which helps with any impression if you have a basic similarity there. But anyway, and ideas do come from people that you know and stuff like that. You also don't want to be unoriginal, right? You don't want to just be a bag of imitations and simulations. But yeah, and choosing what you're specifically doing with your voice, to make a character, it's essential. It's what makes a character work, and that's why some voices feel like they're really spot on. And we've all had the experience of hearing voices, and you're like, not working for me.
Yeah, I just had a friendly debate with someone about some of the celebrities that have. There's like 9 new animated movies that are just out, and like I recognize every actor in one sentence, and I'm like,
yes,
and I'm like, I like them. I'm fans of who they are, but like, could you mix it up a little bit so maybe for a moment I'm like brought into that fantasy world where I'm not going, oh, it's so and so. I just want to be like, oh, the character. I want to know, just be brought into the moment of that character. And there's just too much of that. It's like, okay, that's so and so. Yeah, there it is. Whereas,
well,
I can't
that's
say
a completely different mentality of casting.
Yeah, I mean, I've had fans come up to me and say, it took me until now, and they're in their 30s, to realize that Brock and James were voiced by the same actor. And I'm not saying that I'm a master of all these voices. That's not what I'm saying. But what I did try to do was make it very clear that those 2 characters were the character, not voiced by Eric Stewart. Okay, so I guess the next one's on me. All right. So this one is from Michael. And Michael, his subject matter is listeners' letters. Well done. Okay. Dear Dan and Eric, This is a heavy subject, so I hope you don't mind me throwing it out there, but here goes. First of all, we don't mind discussing this stuff. If you want to share things with us, we appreciate that. We try to share both the good and bad with you guys, so we appreciate that you feel trusting to do this, and also that you want to share this with the listeners as well. So Michael writes, I've been listening from the very beginning and have heard you discuss how to tackle many obstacles in life, be it personal, philosophical, or professional in nature. But there's something that I've dealt with that I think people rarely talk about, and that's fear. I've experienced fear through losing family members to bad mental health, my own health, not knowing if I could put a roof over my own head, and sometimes not knowing where the next meal will come from. But even though now I've managed to find some form of stability after many years of instability, I fear that fear is now holding me back from friendships, relationships, and even personal growth, and will continue to do so forever, even if that might not be the reality. You've spoken about inspiration in episode 31, which I feel is the antithesis of fear. So I'd really like to know how you overcame some of your own hardest personal struggles, and how you keep your own fears in check and inspiration in those darkest times, even when sometimes we're told to keep memories in the past and focus on the future. But that's easier said than done. Very true, my friend Michael, very true. I hope this isn't too much of a personal question, but following from your last listener's letters, I thought hearing more about personal topics was a good way to go. Keep rocking the long hair, Dan, and the same about the Eric's hats. Michael. Well, thank you, Michael, first of all, for the letter. And yeah, this is an interesting subject matter. So, Dan, do you want to
And I think sure, yeah. And I think that that interpretation of inspiration being the opposite of fear is a lovely way to look at it. I also think what is being discussed is similar to things that we were talking about along the steps of the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is a lovely way to look at life, but it's not exactly like life plays out in the way that a story about a hero does. I think the steps of the hero's journey are steps we encounter at different times, even throughout the course of a day, right? At this moment, I'm feeling like I'm dealing with the trials, right, or slaying the dragon or what have you. But to get to dealing with fear and how it's holding you back, I wish I could say you slay the monster once, but no, it has to be each time. And fear can always hold you back. Fear is never going to leave you as a person. That's an emotion we always and we all have to contend with. So the way to deal with it is there are many ways, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a mental health professional, but I think recognizing it is the first thing. And I know that rationality sometimes doesn't help, when you tell yourself it's not that big of a deal. Emotionally, I think what helps is understanding that you will survive this, that you do have the potential to get through. And to be realistic, sometimes getting through something doesn't mean you come out at this, with the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it didn't destroy you. So while that may not sound like the brightest way to look at your life, understand that this battle is ongoing, but you've come so far. You've proven to yourself that within yourself, you have the ability to confront, move through, and move on. And that, my friend, is a great track record to hold up to the next fear that presents itself as a challenge in your way.
Yeah, very well said, and very inspirational. I will say, Michael, that recently I've been dealing with a bunch of things that have felt like a lot of burdens all at once.
Oh, have you ever?
That's
an understatement.
And there are definitely moments where I can tell that I'm not getting enough sleep, or I might not be eating properly, or I might be just stressed. Or you find a lack of motivation to get things done. But there are times where I try to sort of step back and say, okay, so I've been through tough things before. I'm going to figure this out. It's also, some of the things are not in my control. Some of the things are in my control. And then some of the things are not even my fault, So I'm just presented with the situation. I will say that worrying about things is something that I'm guilty of. I stress about travel, and I'm very sort of OCD with a lot of things. I'm the guy that shows up way too early before a flight. I'm the one that, these things can drive me crazy. And I've been working on trying to let some of that go. I know that you're saying this is easier said than done, and that's true. But making that effort, recognizing what is going on is the first step. The other side of it is, you're not the only person that has these issues. So you might find that is a common connection. I find that my closest friends, where they have not walked that mile in my shoes, are empathetic to my situation because they've had their own hero's journey, right? Situation. And so talking to someone, whether it's a close friend or, as you said, you might have some trouble making those friendships. Well, maybe this is the kind of topic that you will find is the thing that brings you together with someone. They might understand you more. Vulnerability is to me, we put up these shields and we pretend that we're so tough. But to me, the people that have a heart, the people that cry when things are sad, or to me, that's the human side. That to me is much more engaging than the standoff, nothing bothers me kind of thing. So maybe that's the way to reach out and to find some common ground, is that, there's other people that are also dealing with this. So hopefully that helps you out, Michael. But thank you for the letter.
Yeah, and another thing that is a little opposite to what I was saying before, because I was talking about evidence of your inner strength. And inspiration very often comes from outside of us. So there was this time, I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast, and I was nearly getting kicked out of college, and I had to make appeals to all these different teachers, and it was basically a week. All of those teachers, by the way, were more than kind and gracious, and I got through. But that week, I needed a fedora. I needed a fedora that reminded me of Indiana Jones. And I remember saying to myself, literally by myself in a room alone, that as long as I wear this, I'm invincible. So I put the power outside of myself, but I put the power on top of my head.
Now you know why I wear a hat.
There you go. And so far you're invincible.
There it is. Could you tell that to the rest of the world?
Yeah. Well, that they know. That's why they're coming after you.
That's right.
I'm not going to share where I hide my whip.
Whoa.
Hey. So I think this is a great way to bring this episode to a close. And we will be reading more letters and more frequently. So don't be disappointed if you didn't hear yours in this particular episode. I promise you. We're going to try to either do a letter an episode or something with more frequency. And we so appreciate you guys writing in.
Yes, thank you.
And as always, this journey would be nothing without you, Eric. I appreciate every time we get a chance to talk.
You too, my friend. You too.
And to all of you followers and listeners out there, we are so grateful for your time and attention, and we're glad that we're giving you something that you're finding some value in. And we look forward to the next time we can have a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stewart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Andromeda, always a sound choice.